Chanakya in New, written by Radhakrishnan Pillai. Chapter 2, The History of India. The loud, excited voice in the distance announced my cousin's arrival home. They all rushed into Grandpa's study with two intentions: to let Grandpa know they were ready for more stories, and to make me feel jealous that I had missed all the fun they had at the market. But my cousins had no idea that I had only gained my remaining home with my grandpa. I will forever treasure those special moments with him. Once again, we sat down around Grandpa to hear his next story. For my cousins, it was a new story, but for me, it was understand what Kautilya's Arthashastra was. Grandpa had fascinated way of building up the story before he come to the point. We could visualize the events as thought they were unraveling before our very eyes, and we were living part of the moment. He had amazing ability to spark our imagination. The history of India is very unique. He began, it is rich and vast. It is about huge monuments such as forts, places, and temples. It is about personalities like kings and saints. It is about literature and describes various subjects ranging from science to art. But most importantly, our history is about spirituality. Spirituality? One of my cousins asked. Yes, spirituality is man's search for God, the search for meaning of life. It is a journey from being ordinary to becoming extraordinary, to discover your huge inner potential and ability to achieve the impossible. Yet, spirituality is about overcoming your ego. He was describing the essence of Indian history in few yet profound words. Where can we find spirituality in India? Asked a curious cousin of mine. Everywhere, it's all over. You can see it in the temples and other places of worship, in our homes and in the streets. You can see it in the idols you worship or in the quiet meditative state of your mind. It is very essence of our culture. I was bit confused. This was abstract concept and I could not understand what grandpa was trying to tell us. Maybe I was too young to relate to what he was saying. Maybe I would have to wait until I grew up to understand exactly what grandpa meant. I guess one needed to reach a certain level of maturity to understand spirituality. I asked him, Grandpa, when I grow up, will I become mature? He smiled and said, it is when you mature that you really grow up. Maturity is not about age, it comes with understanding of life. There are many people who are ripe in their old age, yet they are immature in their approach towards life. On the other hand, certain children are very mature through responsible actions. In fact, many of our saints were very young when they guided their generations. Dhyaneshwar Maharaj, Adi Shankaracharya, Swami Vivekananda, these saints left their body very young and guided old man and woman. There are many examples of Guru Shishya relationship where the Guru, the teacher, was the younger than the student. The teacher was younger than student. Very nice. I smiled to myself and said, if I become mature soon, I can teach a few lessons to my school teacher too. Intrigued, my cousins and I asked in unison, Grandpa, how does one become mature? There are many ways, but one of the easiest way is to study history.
History is full of experiences of people who have walked on this earth before you. It is about events, stories, and incidents that your forefathers went through. It tells you about the way civilization survived the test of the time. It is also tells you about mistakes our forefathers have made, and most importantly it tells your stories as well. That's why it is called history. I was not good history student in school, but I loved how grandpa made it very interesting. Grandpa, I do not like history because I cannot remember those dates. It's very difficult for me. He smiled. Yes, I understood. Sometimes dates are very confusing, but the history I am talking about is not just about remembering dates of certain events that you have to write down in exams. The history I am talking about is not repeating the mistakes others made. There are three types of people in this world. The first type learners by making mistakes. The second type keeps making mistakes but never learns. And finally, the third is most intelligent type. They learn from the mistakes of others. If you are smart, you will realize that you do not have to reinvent the wheel. You can be successful from very beginnings itself. What took generations to achieve, you can achieve in few days. That is the power of knowledge transferred from one generation to another in the form of books. I was mentally transported to different world, but woke up with dread the moment I had word books. Has thought trying to take control of discussion. I shouted, Grandpa, you were talking about Kautilya's Arthashastra. Initially, I was angry with my cousins. Grandpa was just beginning to tell me about it when they had already returned from the marketplace and admitted all the chores. Grandpa digressed. But now it seemed to me that we were finally back on the track. I wanted to know more about Kautilya. Kautilya lived in 4th century BC. History was just opening up a new chapter for me.